Well, welcome back to our series called Working in the New Normal. And the idea with the series is just to share some of our thoughts, keep it short. I have my timer here that's going to keep me honest in terms of, around 5 minutes or so to share some of the thoughts we have to get us better prepared for the new normal, which probably hasn't arrived yet, but hopefully someday in the future we'll be working, and we think it's going to be a little different from the way we've been doing it in the past. And from a lean or process improvements perspective, maybe there's some things we want to do differently than we've done previously. So I wanted to share with you a kind of a confusing issue for me about lean that I've always kind of struggled with a little bit because I know there are strong supporters on both sides of this issue. But something we're thinking about as we go forward, as we get into the new normal. And it's this. There's this famous concept of takt time, right? The rhythm or beat of a process. And that takt time is calculated, so there's a formula, and it's based on demand. And sometimes we call this customer demand, or maybe we base it on future demand, but we have some kind of rhythm or beat. Here's the issue. That I find kind of confusing is that if you design for a particular rate, right, the takt time, and then you try to build to that rate every day, unless you change something, you're trying to build the same volume every day. Now, it could be a different mix, but you're trying to get the same number of units out or work at that same pace. And that's problematic. I see that being more problematic as we go forward into the future because that demand is not level, not standard. Not the same every day. Now, if you're lucky, you have a backlog that you can draw from and actually level it, right? Make it smooth. But I'm anticipating that in the future, we're going to be looking at a couple things. One is some of you are going to be faced with pent-up demand. That means that when we get back to the new normal, you're going to have higher than normal volume because people have just been waiting to place orders. Now, one example of that my partner Gerard mentioned was hospitals and elective surgery. Like if you got a bad knee and you were scheduled for elective surgery and then they postponed that, well, your knee still hurts. And when hospitals are now opened up to do elective surgeries, you're going to want to get in line, right, to get that done. So that's an example of pent-up demand. Now, on the other hand, you may have a market where the demand is lower than it was before because the market hasn't recovered yet, right? So you just don't have that same demand that you had earlier. So either way, what I'm anticipating, and probably you'll agree with me, is that although the future is uncertain, and that's the problem with forecasting, it's hard when we're trying to talk about the future, but chances are good that the future is going to be more volatile than it was before, and chances are really, really good that that demand in the future is going to be different from what you have today. So we've got two things we want to accomplish. Number one, we want to design our future facilities, value streams, to meet that future demand, obviously. So there may be some line design work that's going to be required. I think that possibility is very high that we're going to have to do that. But the other thing is we want to design these value streams, which could be production lines or it could be non-manufacturing processes or it could be hospital processes, but we want to design them with flexibility in mind. In other words, what I mean by that is the ability to change the output, right? Change the number of units that we're producing without having to change the basic design of the line. And that's where we run into the conflict that I mentioned when I opened this session. The confusing thing is that in many industries, these lean lines are designed for a certain volume, and changing that volume without changing the working hours or doing something like that is difficult. So our mixed model line design approach to line design or to value stream design actually does take that into consideration. If you look over on the right side of this page, you'll see a link to a mixed model certification or mixed model course, and you can find out more about this particular approach, which I think is the way to go, especially working in the new normal. So just to recap, We want to be able to be flexible, and we want to be able to be matching that demand that we encounter, whether it be higher than what we had before or lower. So I think I'll leave you at that. So there we go. There's the timer. Pretty good timing, huh? So I'll leave you at that, and we'll look forward to chatting again in the near future.